Welcome to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Erin Bureau. Today's guest is Stephanie Berglund, the CEO of Thread, Alaska's childcare resource and referral network, where she leads efforts to improve the quality, accessibility, and affordability of childcare across the state. With a strong background in social policy and partnership development, Stephanie is deeply committed to enhancing the well-being of children and families in Alaska. Please welcome to the podcast today, Stephanie Berglund. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, your first podcast, you
It
said.
is.
So
I'm really excited.
We're glad to have you here on ours. First, before we kind of get into everything, tell us a little bit about Thread Alaska and its mission.
Yeah. Well, Thread is a private nonprofit here in Alaska, and we've been working across the state coming up on 40 years now,
Wow.
and all with a mission to improve access to quality and affordable, childcare with a focus on, making sure that that's high quality early education. So we provide direct services to families, but then also, work at a community and systems level to try to create a stronger childcare system.
Obviously, this is something that you are passionate about. What inspired you to dedicate your career and to kind of get into this field? What do you get out of it?
Yeah, well, my background is actually in social work, and so I've always had a passion for helping people, families, and communities, and really recognized that focusing on prevention and really helping families start out strong early is going to help all of us. And I have a almost 20-year-old daughter, and when I had her, I recognized, wow, this is really where I want to focus on is, starting work with families when they're just getting started and ensuring their children have the best start.
Yeah, I know childcare. I have a 9-year-old. I remember those childcare days.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward now, childcare seems so hard for parents to find. Why do you think that is?
It's so challenging, and unfortunately, it's been a challenge for decades, and especially here in Alaska with our long-ranging geography and our community so far apart, it's really a challenge. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, we saw that get even worse.
Yeah.
So we really look at those three pillars of access and affordability and high quality, and all of those have really shifted, unfortunately, for more challenge. So what's happening is over the last 5 years, we've seen over 20% of our childcare spaces decline. So that means some of our small businesses have closed, and we aren't seeing some of those new businesses start up. So we still are seeing kind of an overall net loss. So we are already having a shortage, and now that's made even worse. And so we're trying to support families with the challenge environment right now, and working at the community and state and federal level to try to help support systemic change that's needed. But we know it's a huge challenge, and Thread is here to support families.
When families are looking for that right child care spot, what should they be looking for?
Yeah, well, we know it's a challenge and highly emotional, so we encourage families to reach out and get support. So Thread does have free childcare referrals for families, and also we offer free services to learn about childcare assistance and how they can better afford childcare, because it is expensive. So when families are starting their search, we encourage them to start early because, like I mentioned, the supply is difficult right now. We encourage them to start early. And the key things we encourage families to look for is licensed childcare. We want to make sure that childcare is licensed and regulated. And we want to make sure it's safe, healthy, and playful. We want it to be a really engaging learning environment and care environment for the young children. So we encourage families to kind of learn about the care that's available. There's all different types of care settings that are available. Think about the temperament of their child. Do they thrive in maybe a small environment or a large, maybe really socially, and really outdoor active play environment? And then, start to interview programs, visit programs, and learn about the education of the teacher, what is the philosophy of the program, how do they approach their day, their curriculum, learn where your child will be sleeping, playing, and eating, learn a little bit about how that program fosters relationships with your child, their key development, but also relationships with you as a family. We really see childcare as an extension of the family unit. And so, how are you forming that relationship with that early educator so that together you're supporting what your child needs best. So it does take some time. We know that sometimes families are like, I'm starting a new job. I need it now.
Well, which leads me, what if they're looking for something and, they can't find an immediate spot? What do they do then?
Well, like I said, we encourage families to start as early as possible.
Okay.
So, to start to do that research, once they find programs that they like, if the program says, I'm sorry, we don't have any room, see if they can get on a wait list and, still let that program know that they're interested. You never know if something will change in a program and a space does open up. So we encourage families to do that. This is really hard. This is the most stressful thing when there isn't space. And so we encourage families to try to be creative and maybe, find another family where they could share care for a while until a space opens up for them. We encourage them to work closely with their employer to let them know what their family, and care needs are. Maybe ask for flexibility where they can. I know not all employers can offer that, but lean into where
Can't hurt to ask.
It doesn't hurt to ask, and then we've also encouraged some families, to consider starting a childcare business themselves. So, like I mentioned, we don't have enough childcare in Alaska, and so we're always looking for new entrepreneurs who are interested in starting up.
Interesting. So I know there's been some focus on childcare at the state level. What's happening with the governor's child task force?
Yeah, well, the silver lining, I guess, in the pandemic and really the childcare crisis that's been happening is there's more focus and attention on childcare in Alaska than ever before. So we're seeing more businesses pay attention. We're seeing more policymakers that pay attention. And the last few years, we've seen some of the first investments in our state budget in childcare to help alleviate some of the sector crisis. And one of the outcomes of this really kind of the volume termed up on childcare has been the governor issued an executive order to start a governor's childcare task force. So I was really proud to serve as a member of that. That work is concluded now. But we met for a little over a year, really focused on producing recommendations for the governor and ultimately the Department of Health and really how to improve, again, that access to affordable and high-quality options. So there actually are 55 recommendations that the group came up with. It's quite a few.
Wow.
Yeah. Some are, there's a lot. So we're really hopeful for what can happen out of that. There's some great options to get started right away. And there's also some, longer range, bigger goals that I think would really move the needle and help with the childcare sector needs.
Well, once you have a childcare and those kids are in it, how can those childcare providers now support children's social emotional development, which we know is so key, especially in those early stages?
It's so key. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our great early educators across the state. They're doing. I used to say this when my daughter was in care too. That it's like the most important job ever. And when we think about how our upbringing and what helped us be quality people, oftentimes people think of an educator in their lives, a special teacher, and those early educators are where it all starts. So. It's really important to, develop that relationship with your child's teacher. They're, ask them how they're supporting your child's development, ensuring that they have received training and support around, key developmental milestones, how they're developing their curriculum and the schedule of the day around, what's going to help that child thrive. We know those interactions between the teacher and the child are really what forms that trusting relationship so children can be themselves. We love that there's lots of research showing that in high quality care environments, children are, they're testing how the world works. They're, developing those social relationships with friends. They're learning how groups work. They're learning how to solve problems, in their own little way. But, and having a teacher to be able to foster that throughout the day, to recognize feelings, sometimes bigger feelings than others, helping children.
Big feelings,
helping children manage that, navigate that, kind of, be comforting in a way of what's okay and, also helping them understand how that's helping them learn and get to the next stage.
What can parents or families do to help prepare the kids going into childcare? Because that's a new environment. You're stepping away from home.
Yeah.
Some kids are, nervous and scared. I think parents are more nervous and from the detachment. But what are some tips that they can do to, make that a little bit smoother transition?
Yeah, it's a big change, for children. Maybe if you think about starting a new school or starting a new childcare program, and you can starting with bringing your child, on some of those interview trips, I would call them, to see them in that natural environment, and maybe ask if you can visit a little bit, have the child get to know their new teacher and warm up to the program. Feel really okay about talking about it a lot. Like, this is, you're starting a new school and let's get ready. And then I think what's most important is setting that routine for your child, having a consistent routine, having a regular way that you maybe, talk about it as you're, transitioning in the car, or have a special song or something that helps a child know that this is the transition that's happening. It does take some children sometimes, longer than not to transition and settle into care, but know that that's part of the process, and being as consistent as possible will help, and really developing that strong relationship with their teacher.
Yeah. How does childcare affect a child's future educational success?
Oh, it's really key. Like I mentioned, when we know that families and when children can get the very best start, and that includes their health and well-being, but also quality care and education, that just sets them up for a stronger trajectory in their whole life. So there's strong research that shows when children are in a high-quality learning environment early, that they're more prepared to start school, that they're, show just stronger kindergarten readiness, that they have stronger third grade reading scores, eighth grade math, they're more likely to graduate, more likely to have, larger earning potential, and avoid, some of the social ill wills that we struggle with in the state. So we know it contributes to a strong start for children that really benefits them their whole life.
What would you say to families here in Alaska? As you mentioned, like, we're kind of getting a spotlight put on childcare for the first time in a really long time, to letting them know there's organizations like Thread available, and I'm sure several others. How can you shout it to the rooftops to let people know so parents aren't home just, wondering and worrying, because that's not a fun place to be in, but it's also sometimes an unfortunate reality.
Yeah. This is where I'm thankful for resources like podcasts and, through social media and parent groups that just, share the resources that are available. I think the number one message that I have for families is you're not alone, that if you're struggling with childcare, you're not alone. This is a real issue for many people, but also for them to know that Thread is here to help. So Thread has a wealth of resources. We have free childcare referrals available on our website 24/7, and we also have really our expert early childhood specialists who can help with customized needs if you need something specialized in care, and really kind of want to walk through the process, especially for the first time. So I encourage people to visit our website, which is threadalaska.org, and you can also call us for our great resources at our 1-800 number, which is 800-278-3723.
And you mentioned too a little bit earlier how people can start maybe their own childcare. If somebody's interested in doing that, what is the first step that they need to do? Is it contact you guys, and then you'll kind of help take the steps from there?
Yes, they can contact Thread, and we're happy to help direct them. It depends on what type of business they're interested in, if they want to start maybe a family childcare program in their home, or if they're interested in something larger, maybe a larger community-based center. So like I mentioned, as we want families to ensure that their program is high quality, ensuring that it's licensed and regulated, so we can connect them with the regulatory bodies to start that process.
And I think I know kiddos start kindergarten around age 5, whether you put them in a little bit earlier or later, depending on kind of where their birthday falls. For that 5 and under age, are you seeing a bigger need in one area? Like, is it infants? Is it kind of that 2-3 right before kindergarten stage, or is it just kind of 5 and under? All of it.
Yeah. Well, there's a huge need for all ages of care, including school-age care. So, the need for childcare and quality education doesn't stop when we go to kindergarten. We need that before and after school care as well. But I would say overall, the largest need by far across the state is infant toddler care, and it is the most expensive to provide, and does require the smallest ratios, which is really important. So it is the hardest to provide and to find.
Yeah, and I mean, who wouldn't want to hold and cuddle
I
little
know.
infants all day? My goodness. Just looking ahead, what's your vision for the future of childcare and early childhood education here in Alaska? What kind of gives you hope?
Yeah, I'm really excited that there's more partners, willing to be a part of helping to solve the childcare crisis and really be part of long-term solutions. So we're seeing over the last few years more businesses being involved than ever before. We're seeing a lot of kind of local groups, maybe work groups and task force form at local community levels. We're seeing a lot more attention and conversation at the state amongst policymakers. So we're really hopeful that together we can come up with some solutions that really help support this really critical infrastructure in our state.
And again, website, you guys are also on social media, and the phone number if folks want to reach out and get some more information.
Yeah, people can reach us at threadalaska.org and on all the socials. They can find us. And our 1-800 number again is 800-278-3723.
And just, veering off, not veering off topic, but just for you personally, you're a mom. You've been in this industry for a very long time. She's grown now.
Yes.
But, what have you learned about just motherhood in general over these years and, kind of being in this industry still and seeing these young moms, new families and parents?
Oh my gosh. I love that your whole podcast is about parenting because we all need parenting support. I would just loop back to, again, what I've learned is that I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So, I live here with my husband and we don't have extended family nearby. And so just relying on, our community of Alaskans and our community of care was so important, as we were raising our child, and her school and her early educators were really a key part of our family and her development. So I think the key part of is just, staying connected, asking for what you need, getting the supports and resources. And so that's where I'm really hopeful that Thread and my role there we can keep helping connect families to what they need.
And lastly, before I go, I always love to give my guests kind of the final say, last words. Any thought or advice or anything that you want to mention or add that I didn't share on this topic or just in general?
Yeah, I would encourage families to talk about their childcare needs. I know, it's easy to maybe talk about it with your family and your friends and, other moms and dads. I think I would encourage more parents to talk to their employers about it. Talk about how this is so key to them being able to stay employed and be productive in the workplace, and talk about their needs. Talk about how benefits would be helpful, and really ask for what they need. I think for a more modern workplace and more competitive workplaces, that's what we're going to need, is to figure out how we can better support families. And then, I would also encourage people to lean into advocacy. Thread has a great resource of an action center where we really take the guesswork out of, how to be an engaged advocate. So I know families are really busy. They're stressed trying to find childcare, and they're like, the last thing I can do is figure out how to navigate the legislative process.
Oh, yeah.
But if you sign up for our action alerts, and you can do that on our website, you can easily get our news and alerts. We'll let you know when there's key things moving that would really benefit from you sharing your story with policymakers as well.
Awesome. Some good tips there. Well, I enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Hopefully people listening, it will help and spread that along. So thank you so much for coming on our podcast. Stephanie Berglund, the CEO of Thread Alaska.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to another episode of Parenting in the Far North.